When I came up here, Alan, I came up a road called Paradise Road. Came to the top of Paradise Road, I thought to myself, you know, I can see why it's called Paradise, because it was this beautiful vision just at the top of the road.
We're in the old town, right bang in the middle of it. The most interesting part of Scarborough. It's steeped in history.
Was a writer of short stories, better known as the novelist Mary James, or to her close family as Lolly.
I don't know if it's true or not true that you were quite possibly conceived at Glyndebourne one afternoon when your father, Horace, who was a violinist with the LSO, performing at Glyndebourne, and your mother might have taken to sex that afternoon and, wow.
Oh, that's a nice story. I wasn't there. Well, I was around at the time, but I can't vouch for it. My mother was a ferocious... Well, she was a writer, so she made up awful stories. I mean, but I'm sure that one was true. It's a nice way to be conceived, isn't it, at Glyndebourne?
I couldn't think of anything nicer. But your mother, the story of your mother is absolutely captivating. You thought that she was married to your father, but you then discovered that she wasn't actually married to your father, Horace.
Yeah, I said, hey, folks, I'm illegitimate. Oh, that's terrific. How
Which
romantic.
is quite a thing in, you know, when you probably discovered that. When did you discover that? In the late 50s or something?
Oh, no, much later than that. 70s, I think. 60s,
wow, so
70s.
You didn't realise that?
Well, I know, I was old enough to find it quite romantic. I think it would have been quite traumatic if I'd only been 10 or 11. In fact, one day we were on a bus and I met this extraordinary man in a beret. He said, oh, hello, Boo. And I thought, who the hell's Boo? And it turned out to be my mother. And he said, oh, hello, darling, I've seen you for ages. And gave her a kiss and he chat. And I said, who is that? And she said, oh, that's my ex-husband. I said, oh, really? Who turned out to be her current husband, actually. Very jolly little man. I've never seen him again. So he might well be my father. I don't know.
The romance between Horace and Lolly didn't last, and Ayckbourn's parents separated. Alan remained with his mother.
As a child, I mean, here you are, your father, Horace, and your mother have split. Why did they split?
I think he was a serial romancer, my daddy, quite honestly, and he was sitting in the front row of the fiddles in the LSO, and every now and then he cast a look behind him, and there was another lovely young new violinist, and he'd say, hi, what are you doing after the concert? If Mum wasn't in the audience. And I think that's probably how he met Daphne, his new wife. And I asked my mum once, why did they split up? And she said, I just had enough of it. You know, I mean, you know, I had all these women ringing up saying, I love him, he's the most beautiful man. She said, yeah, you should try living with him. And then the 45th one rang up and said, I love him. And I actually thought, no, this one's a sticker. So you can have him. And I think she just had enough, really. But he was a charmer.
Your mother was extraordinary. I mean, not only did she have her own typewriter way writing her stories for magazines and her short stories, but she bought you a writer at the age. So do I take it that you would both be sitting in the kitchen writing away?
I can remember, you know, how those little flashes of childhood come back to you, and I have a vivid one of me sitting under the, well, at table leg height, getting covered in this terrible violet blue ink that the John typewriter gave me, and she was thundering away now, 120, you know, blah, 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 blah. I just sat there and watched my mum, and she dragged me along with her to places like the Women's Press Club, which is the most terrifying thing for a male to be in. The men weren't allowed in, but because I was not really a male, but a very small male, I would sit amongst these very, very strong-minded, strong-voiced, heavily made-up ladies of the press, and quite fearsome, most of them. At least quite scary. I sat there, and I remember being in hairdressers and all sorts of strange places. Editors' offices, and incredibly glamorous women floated in and out. Oh, wow.
So these strong-minded women, of course, are one of the features of your plays, which I think was, in its own way, rather revolutionary at the time, is to see ordinary middle-class women, suddenly to see them in all their strength and personality. And obviously, one begins to understand why, given that you had this sort of this domination of a woman in your life who sort of introduced you to this world.
Yes, yes. I mean, I always think I was privileged to have what few men get a chance of. Maybe a lot of them don't want it, but sitting, listening to women talking to each other, woman to woman, and with the small child open tape recorder going, who's completely invisible to them or forgotten about, it came back several years later. Women come up and say, "How do you know that? How do you know that's what we talk about?"
I'm gonna love you like nobody's loved you. Come rain or come shine. High as a mountain and deep as a river. Come rain or come shine. I guess when you met me, it was just one of those.
Have you got him to sleep?
Yes.
Oh, they look so lovely like that, don't they? That little cherub. Yes, well, I'm really glad you could come this afternoon. Colin really will appreciate that. Seeing us all. What I'm saying is, really, I wouldn't blame him. Not altogether. If he did. Someone else, you know, another woman. Won't blame him, won't blame her. Not as long as I was told. Providing I know that I'm told. All right. Providing I feel able to say to people, yes, I am well aware that my husband is having an affair with such and such or whoever. It's quite all right, I know all about it. We're both grown-up people, we know what we're doing. He knows I know, she knows I know. So mind your own business, I'd feel all right about it. But I will not stand deception. I'm simply asking that I be told. Not necessarily now, but sometime. See?
After Lolly's marriage broke down, she married again, this time to the local bank manager, Cecil.
And then Lolly didn't even tell you that she was about to get married again.
Yeah, there was a letter from me somewhere saying, "Dear Mummy, I hope you have a nice marriage." And yeah, I was at boarding school from the age of 7, probably to accommodate her life as much as anything.
So many of these features of this sort of rather dysfunctional family life that you had seem to find their way quite easily into lots of your plays.
I'm not aware that my feelings towards you have altered.
What, not at all?
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, Gerald,
I still feel
we
the
don't
same.
kiss, we hardly touch each other. We don't make love, we don't even share the same bed now. We sleep at different ends of the room.
That's just sex you're talking about. That's just the sexual
Oh, yes,
side.
of course it is.
There's more to it than that, surely.
Not at the moment, there isn't.
You mean that the sex is the only thing that's mattered to you in our relationship?
No, of course not.
Well, that's what you seem to be saying.
What I'm saying is... All I'm saying is that once that's gone, all that, it becomes important.
If you hadn't been the son of Lolly, would you have written Woman in Mind?
Well, I was aware that my mother was, at that point, going, as it were, slightly around the twist. And she was getting increasingly eccentric, even by her standards. And then the doctor banging volts into her head didn't seem a very good idea, because it seemed to be making her only better. That experience stayed with me, and then I read the remarkable Oliver Sacks book about the man who mistook his wife for a hat. And I realized the potential for perceiving things that weren't there, or the complex games that your brain plays with you.
Squeezy, cow, squeezy.
I've no idea what you're saying. What are you saying?
Saul bite, Saul bite.
Who are you, anyway? Where am I?
Octa bin, sir. Climb Octa bin, sir. Mrs. Shaw pardon, Chusen.
Oh, God, I've died. I'm in hell. I've died and I've gone to hell.
Chusen.
Oh, why have I gone to hell? Why me? I've tried so terribly hard to, terribly hard.
Susan.
You've no idea how hard I've tried. There must be some mistake.
Susan.
Susan? Yes. That's me, Susan. Me?
As
Susan.
Alan helped his mother to rebuild her life again after the breakdown of yet another marriage, he began trying to establish himself as an actor. It was while at boarding school that Alan Ayckbourn got his first taste of the theatre. Then an old schoolmaster acquainted with the legendary actor-manager Sir Donald Wolfett set him up with his first professional audition.
He was the first professional actor I met, up close, and I thought they were all like him.
Good morning to the day.
And of course, he was a complete leftover from another era.
Oh, Volpone, by blood and rank a gentleman canst not fall under...
Meeting Wolfett, I was in direct touch with Irving and Tree and all the way back. And here was the last of the great actor-managers. Everything he said was law. Big, 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 big face. Paws the size of potholes.
Sick and lame indeed.
Full of old 5 and 9, which he'd never quite makeup, which he'd never quite removed after generations of. So he'd stick his face very close to you and say, "What are you doing?" And you say, "There's a screen in it." You say, "Well, walk properly." Anyway, it was encouraging, and I'd auditioned for the great man.
Were you any good?
Not bad. I mean, I lacked an awful lot of technique, but what I lacked in technique, I made up for a lot in sincerity. And because I knew better than to show my lack of technique, I kept very, very still on stage. And I got a lot of reviews. His lizard-like stillness. I wanted to be part of the theatre. I wanted to be an actor.
After his summer season with Wolfett, Ayckbourn went to work at the Connaught Theatre in Worthing, and from there he moved on to the Thorndyke in Leatherhead. And it was at the end of that season that he heard about a job going in Scarborough.
I came up on the train and then got picked up in a van and got driven over the fantastic countryside. When I arrived, there were several things going for it. One was that it was by the seaside, which was ace as far as I was concerned, absolutely wonderful. The second thing was that it was a theatre in the round, which was a good news as a stage manager, because it meant much less heavy humping and moving of scenery. So that was good news. And third, of course, it was run by a man called Stephen Joseph, whom I was yet to meet. I was employed sight unseen by this extraordinary maverick figure.
Stephen Joseph was to become Alan Ayckbourn's mentor and inspiration. The son of actress Hermione Gingold and publisher Michael Joseph was a stage director and a pioneer of theatre in the round.
It turned out Stephen was a theatre figure who did not easily court popularity. I mean, he attacked all established forms of theatre, which, of course, as a 17, 18-year-old, I thought was tremendous. He arrived here by accident on his motorbike one day in pursuit of a space, and the chief librarian said, "Oh, you can have the first floor." Don't think he knew what he was letting himself in for, really.
Stephen Joseph opened the Library Theatre in Scarborough, Britain's first professional theatre in the round, in 1955.
So there was this little makeshift space with temporary seating, do-it-yourself rostra, which we put up individually, and then this little acting area, 22 by 24, in which he proceeded to do mostly large, mostly new plays.
Despite London being at the centre of new British drama, Ayckbourn was more than happy to remain in Scarborough, working with Stephen Joseph. In 1959, he made his debut as a writer with a play called The Square Cat, written with his then wife, Christine Rowland, under the pseudonym Roland Allen.
The Square Cat came about as a row I had with Stephen, because I was appearing in a play and I came off complaining about the part, and he said, "Well, if you can write a better play than this, you're on." And I said, "Anyone can write a better play than that. I'm right. Take you on, mate." So the following summer, I presented him with, well, just before that, I presented him with The Square Cat, which was, my whole ego was blown to bits because I was writing for myself a leading role where I displayed talents which I did not have, singing, dancing, all smiling, and of course...
Playing the guitar?
Playing the guitar.
Which you couldn't play?
No. Got 3 lessons from a guy in Trafalgar Road there.
The Square Cat, written, directed and starring Ayckbourn, was a farcical comedy and proved to be a hit with the Scarborough seaside audiences.
Was it because, of course, this was a place which expected to be entertained, that you felt you had to write something which would entertain them one way or another?
I think that was always in me. I mean, inclement weather was fortunately on our side, I think. Yes. And we all looked out of the window at 12 o'clock on a matinee day and prayed for rain, because a quick, sharp shower would bring them running in. I think Stephen's idea, which was populist, really, I mean, he just wanted to widen the barriers, which I carried on with, widen the basis for theatre, where there's a terrible feeling in this country quite often where people feel that theatre is not for them. They're born with that feeling and they go on feeling that. And one spent one's life trying to say, well, it is. I mean, you watch much more difficult things on television every day of your life, and yet theatre seems to be difficult. You know, it's hard work.
Ayckbourn continued to write a play each year for the Library Theatre's summer season, and by 1964, writing under his own name, the experimental Mr. Whatnot was the first of his plays to be staged in the West End. And despite a stellar cast, including Ronnie Barker, it proved to be a colossal flop.
Universally sank with all hands on board. It was a terrible disaster. And Stephen said, look, you know, forget Mr. Whatnots and things, which are all very, very experimental for their time. He said, why don't you just try and write a well-made play? And I went, made play? Please don't. I'm a new dramatist, you know. I don't want to write Rattigan or Coward, for goodness sake. Heavens. So and then he persuaded me, and I sat down and tried to write a well-made play. Nearly worked, not quite. But it sort of had wheels.
Well, it wheeled to the West End.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course it had Richard Briers in it and Celia Johnson in it. And it was a big hit.
Yeah, yeah.
So Alan actually chose you to play the part of Greg.
Greg, that's right, yes, the young man in those days. And they was coming to the theatre just to see a little run-through early, and he this rather badly put-together person, and with this one terrible old suitcase, and appeared in the auditorium. And I said, oh, Mr. Ayckbourn, it is nice to see you. And I said, are you all right? I'm taking digs at the moment.
In digs?
Yes, digs. And I said, you haven't got much luggage. He said, well, I've only got one suit. I said, well, that's dreadful. And he'd had a tiny flop at the Arts Theatre. And this, relatively speaking, was unbelievable success.
I couldn't believe it when the reviews started coming in and the box office, and my bank balance went from alarmingly red to alarmingly black in about a space of 2 weeks.
And then you got a telegram.
Yes, from the man whom I'd scorned, Noel Coward.
And what does it say?
Dear Alan Ayckbourn, thank you so much for a beautifully constructed, beautifully written play. Yours sincerely, Noel Coward. I rang Dickie Briers up, actually, and I said, who are you winding me up? Someone's just sent me a telegram from Noel Coward. He said, no, he was in last night. He said, oh, yes, he loved it, old boy. And I said, did he talk about it? He said, no, he just said, how old is the author? And I said, well, he's probably 26. Oh, dear God, how depressing. And left the room. And so that was nice. It was a nice moment.
So there's which is phenomenally successful, which puts you on the map. But all the context of the theatre scene in London changing, did you feel slightly sort of isolated?
I was writing plays with French windows, for God's sake. The dramatist with sunny people who don't worry about the war in Suez and anything. They just worry about tea. So I got a reputation rather rapidly, yes, for being, phrases we use like dizzy spin like thistledown, So I was certainly lightweight. So I stuck with the label for quite a few years.
Remember, this was the mid-60s, and British theatre had been revolutionised in the previous decade. Osborne's looked back in anger, Beckett's Waiting for Godot, Stoppard's Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, Bond saved, and of course, there was Harold Pinter. When The Birthday Party flopped on its London debut, out of the blue, Pinter approached Stephen Joseph in Scarborough and proposed that he direct his own production under the banner of Scarborough Theatre in.
So he arrived, and we for him in Glasshouse Stores it was a pub in Brewer Street upstairs, and he looked at me and he said, Stanley. So I read Stanley, sight unseen. But I said, very interesting, this pianist, isn't he? He comes on and he talks about his concert, and then two men come along in a van and they bundle him out and he's taken off somewhere. So what I'm really interested in knowing, Harold, is where he comes from, and secondly, where he goes to in the van. And he gave me that very serious look. I think the answer to that is mind your own fucking business. Oh, thank you very much. It's an answer I've always wanted to give an actor, but never had the courage to. That was a very valuable note from Harold. I said, ooh, he does know what he's doing.
Just 6 months after Relatively Speaking opened in London, Ayckbourn's mentor, Stephen Joseph, died. But there was no question that Alan would remain in Scarborough, continuing the work that Stephen Joseph had done. Over the next few years, a pattern emerged. Every year, Alan would write and direct a new play for Scarborough that would transfer to London the following year, albeit with a more established director and a starrier cast. In 1973, a year after he formally took over as the artistic director of the Library Theatre, Ayckbourn wrote what is arguably his most famous play.
Norman? Yes.
The Norman Conquest trilogy charts the relationships of 6 characters as they come together over a weekend at a country house. Each play takes place respectively in the dining room, the sitting room, and the garden.
They weren't designed for people who share a house with Norman.
Despite the riotous success of the plays in Scarborough, London producers were reluctant to put all 3 straight into the West End, but Ayckbourn didn't want them to be split up, so eventually the Norman Conquest made its London debut at the Greenwich Theatre. Tom Courtenay played the part of Norman, and was joined that would go on to be future stars of British television.
Let's get seated. Now, Reg, you go up the end there, would you?
One of the most popular of all Ayckbourn's plays, The Norman Conquest is also the closest to pure farce.
There's a scene when they have dinner. Penny Keith is trying to set the places where everybody is to sit.
Oh, no, not there, Ruth, dear. Would you mind sitting one seat further up?
Eric Thompson, he directed the plasmon scene perfectly logically, and it was quite amusing and it made sense. And then Alan came to see it being rehearsed.
No, you're here, Tom. Sit here.
Oh, Annie, you should be sitting here. You're the hostess.
Oh, no, she can't sit there. She's out of order.
But she's the hostess. She should sit at the
But
head.
then we've got two women sitting together.
Well, I'll move back down here. That's easy.
No, Ruth, no. You stay where you are.
Look, I'll go here next
I
time.
remember it was very confusing and we didn't quite know how to pace it. And he did come in and he was very, because he sort of saw in his head exactly how it should be.
I don't want to worry you, but now you've got a woman at both ends of the table.
That's what I'm saying. Why won't you listen?
No, we've got Ruth there, then me, then Annie, Norman when he comes in over there, and Tom next to... That's where we've gone wrong. Tom, you're in the wrong seat.
Well, I thought
I'm going to sit down permanently.
Reg, will you listen?
Tom, you move along to the end.
Reg!
I just moved from there.
I'm sitting down now.
His one little simple move that only he knew about made the thing it grew from being quite amusing to hysterically funny. And he has this sort of thing in his head about what's funny.
Tom. Tom, you are sitting here.
Oh, back where I started.
Reg at the top.
This is wrong, you know.
At the top. Ruth.
I have sat down. I refuse to get up.
Ruth. Ruth, you are all right where you are.
Good evening. Carry on. Talk amongst yourselves.
No, not there, Norman.
Is that my father's suit you've got on?
If he was a man with extraordinary arm and inside leg measurements, yes, indeed.
Norman, not there.
Why not?
Norman.
Because it's wrong.
Wrong? Is it wrong to sit between my old pal Reg and this dwarf on my left? Hello, little chap.
Hello.
Norman. Norman.
No, Sarah, this is all right. I'll sit here. This is fine.
But we've now got...
Fine.
Fine.
I mean, it was an absolutely huge hit, wasn't it?
Yeah, huge. And the little bit where I sat at the dining table on a small chair with the tables down, I ate like that. I actually saw a bloke one night fall out of his seat in the circle, laughing. I mean, we couldn't stop them. Penny Keith would be standing there on my left. Penny doesn't corpse, but she just couldn't hold it. The fright of it, the whole house up, brilliant. And I'd make it worse by going lower in the chair.
I don't think I've ever, before or since, heard laughter like it. No, certainly not in table manners. For years afterwards, I couldn't go to have dinner with anyone, ever, without people saying to me, "Oh, Penny, come on, you know how to place people round." And the joyful thing about that is people used to say to me about Sarah, "You know, she's so like my mother, or she's so like my sister, she's so like my wife."
By the summer of 1975, 5 Ayckbourn plays were running simultaneously in the West End, the most ever by a single author. And to mark his success across the Atlantic, 4 Ayckbourns were playing. The corner of Broadway and 45th Street was renamed Ayckbourn Alley for the day. Quite an achievement for a writer who many were still eager to dismiss as a lightweight entertainer. But now, Alan Ayckbourn's heart belonged to Scarborough, and he had determined that his future, indeed his destiny, was here.
A small community. It's bigger than a village and small enough not to become impersonal. As they say, all humans here. In fact, you settle here, which I've only just done permanently. One does realise that the go on, and the politics and the rises and falls of individuals, which probably is my style of writing, because I do write about communities as a rule, not big general worldwide events. It's one big landlady in summer that Scarborough. It opens up and welcomes the rest of the world, you know, 1 million visitors. And in winter it becomes itself again, about their actions.
In the winter of 1976, rehearsals got underway for the Library Theatre's production of Between Ourselves.
I honestly think Pam and me have reached the end of the road. I'm saying I think Pam and me have reached the end of the road.
Oh.
It's a terrible thing to say. She's drinking as well, you know. Yeah, I'm the cause of that.
Oh, I shouldn't think.
Well, what I always try to do is write a very serious play. Hopefully it has this veneer of fun on top of it, but it's only a veneer.
Yeah, women need a rock. A rock. Trouble is, I'm a bloody marshmallow. Weakness in a man, that's something a woman can never...
It is both funny and terribly, terribly sad. And it depends where you're standing. And I love that sort of humour. It is laughter on the one side, but tragedy on the other. And the two can run together. And that's been my discovery through life of my plays.
Do you know what it's like, Dennis? To feel undesired?
I'll say I do.
That's what he's done to me.
Oh, sorry, who's this? We're still talking about Neil, are we?
He's made me feel ashamed. Why should I be made to feel ashamed?
Depends what you've been up to, eh?
Hasn't even paid me the compliment of going after another woman. I think I could accept that. Just about. But to be frozen out. So I was unnatural. Some kind of freak. Start her up, Dennis.
No, I can't. I haven't got the keys.
Start her up and let's slip away. Boom, boom.
You all right? Pam? Pam? Now, come on, Pam. Pam! What is it?
I think I'm going to be car sick.
Hold on. Not on the upholstery, then. Now, come on. Come on, you're putting you up. Oh, blimey, O'Reilly, bloody Pisces.
Now, you can say what you like, yes. I'm not staying out there a minute longer. I want my surprise. Jenny.
Give me a hand, please.
What?
Not Mother!
It's all right, Dennis. It's all right. I've seen nothing. You needn't worry.
Mother!
Oh, it's all right. There's no one in there.
Will somebody come and give me a hand?
Get out and away. All right, on your own head, be it.
Dennis? Dennis,
Wait. Could you give us a hand,
Oh,
please?
sorry not to come in. Serve you right. There are certain things that his best wife doesn't know about. You poisonous old woman! You're loving this, aren't you? It's what you wanted all along, was it? But Dennis to go off with somebody to break up my home. I don't know what you're talking about there. You're being most offensive. You nasty old toad! You've always hated me. You've always wanted my home.
Vera!
You have to say it with your face.
You can walk safely in daylight on your own street without feeling threatened, without being subjected to 9-foot-high obscene graffiti on every street corner. Parents, you can feel confident your children are free to go outside to play. Women, you can now walk without fear alone at night. There is someone here for you, speaking out for you, fighting your corner, and that man is here, standing in front of you today. Thank you and bless you all!
Alan Ayckbourn's latest play, Neighbourhood Watch, not only deals with the familiar themes of the aspirational and dysfunctional world of Middle England, but is also uncannily prescient about the state of Britain today, and in particular the turbulent summer of 2011.
They've just been arrested.
Arrested? Who have?
The Wrigleys. 2 of them, anyway. Typical police cock-up. Can you believe they sent 2 officers? 2. One of them was barely an officer. It was a policewoman. That's all they sent.
It's about a group of well-meaning citizens living on a suburban estate somewhere in the land I usually visit, sort of 4 or 5 miles outside Reading.
It's almost as bent as the Wrigleys. As they saw it, one victim...
And they get fearful, as indeed people do these days, about violence and crime and imagined violence and imagined crime. And so they start a well-meaning neighbourhood watch scheme, only it goes sadly awry.
We never intended to run our neighbourhood watch scheme on fear, did we?
Well, not exactly fear, just the occasional warning. You know, the occasional friendly warning, you
Like
know.
the warning they gave to Mr. Clutton?
What warning's that?
They set fire to his pigeons.
Oh, dear heavens!
It was written, well, last October, I think. And as we were rehearsing, journalists kept ringing up and saying, "Can you foresee the future?" Well, I thought it might happen, but I didn't realise it was going to actually happen. And then we were sort of torn between being terribly topical and wishing the riots had stopped.
I have taken certain precautions out there since our incident. I put up properly worded signs. Private property, trespassers will be prosecuted, that sort of thing, at regular intervals along our
It
boundaries.
does embrace a lot of my concerns about society today.
Be amazed if half of them can read anyway.
We just have polarised into people who take very extreme views.
We probably do need to take action, certainly, but I believe it must fall well short of unprovoked violence.
Despite Ayckbourn's self-evident writing credentials and the box office bonanza greeting each one of his plays, his knack of giving theatre-goers a good night out still grated with the majority of critics and reviewers well into the 70s. So it came as a shock when Sir Peter Hall, the director of the National Theatre, not only commissioned him to write a new play, but asked him to co-direct as well.
Alan surprised everybody by his certainty of who he was as a writer. I wasn't going to do bedroom farce if the author didn't really want me to. So I tried to manufacture a situation where he did what I wanted and I did what he wanted. And it worked.
How did the critics respond to the fact that you had put this on?
Oh, they were enraged, almost to a man, that we should be using public money in order to amuse ourselves by doing commercial plays. This was disgraceful. I mean, I really couldn't believe it. I thought they'd taken leave of their senses.
Peter Hall was bravely and defiantly single-minded. If some thought Bedroom Farce sat uncomfortably with the familiar national repertoire of classics and new writing, they'd also failed to notice that Ayckbourn's play had been the longest-running show in repertoire in the National's history and was providing the subsidised theatre with much-needed income as well. Peter Hall wanted Alan Ayckbourn back at the National, directing not only his own work, but other playwrights too.
There's a quote in a biography of Alan which quotes you as saying to Alan Ayckbourn, "No doubt you can do very well without the National Theatre, but can the National Theatre do without you?"
Well, that, I hope, is one of those enigmatic questions.
That was quite a brave thing to do. I mean, someone who...
Yeah. Who was, I thought, a very good director, but not sure of it himself. And I think the test of him coming to the National and the test of me asking him to come to the National are both of them pretty dangerous moments. But theatre is like that.
Alan took leave of absence from Scarborough and headed south. A big step for the writer who'd enjoyed the autonomy of being outside of London. But Hall had presented him with an offer he just couldn't refuse, to direct a whole season at the National with his own company of actors. Alan said that you were the one actor that he knew he wanted from the start when he was casting, when he was there. And he tells a story of how he took you out for lunch, and as you're both men of few words and large appetites, as he put it, you had fixed the season before the soup was on the table.
Yeah. And then we just carried on eating. Alan's quite quick when he wants to put it. So he just put the whole scene in front of me as though it would make any difference to me, as though I'd read it even. So I just looked at it and said, that's just perfect. It gives you a lot of freedom to develop your own character. And he's a great director. He's calm and logical and good.
I took out of my own mouth to give to her. I took out of my wife's mouth. I walk hungry plenty of days in this city. And now I gotta sit in my own house and look at a son of a bitch punk like that, which he come out of nowhere. I give my house to sleep, take the blankets off my bed for him, and he takes and puts his dirty, filthy hands on her like a goddamn thief.
But Eddie, she's a woman
He's
now.
stealing from me.
Yeah, she wants to get married, Eddie. She can't marry you, can she?
What are you talking about, marry me? Who the hell are you talking about?
Arthur Miller saw Ayckbourn's production of The View from the Bridge and said that it was the best he had ever seen. Despite his residency at the National, Ayckbourn continued to write for the company in Scarborough, returning each year for the traditional summer season.
I mean, it is almost. He finishes with, I mean, almost that.
Many of his earlier plays were now seen as classics and were not only a staple of the amateur dramatic scene, but proving hugely popular on television, with a regular slot in the Christmas TV listings. Absurd Person Singular is set in 3 kitchens over 3 consecutive Christmases.
Still raining, I see.
Oh, shut the door, it's coming in.
Oh, cats and dogs. Dogs and cats. 1823. 1823. Getting on. 7 minutes. They'll be here.
Oh.
I've got a few games lined up.
Games?
Just in case.
This production made a lasting impression on a young Catherine Tate.
I would have been about 13 or something, and I just happened to stumble upon this sort of event going on my television, and with people that I don't think up until that point I'd recognised from TV. I'd more recognised them from my life, probably. And I was really pulled in by it.
The what? Oh, well, it's of course. Well, that's why we came, wasn't it?
We've brought you a present.
Seasonal something. Oh.
Ah, thank you. Oh, I'm afraid we didn't bring anything for you and your husband. Because we didn't realise you'd be here, you see.
Oh, sorry about that.
Never mind.
Not to worry.
Oh, and then we could give them the, you know, that we got given this evening.
The what?
You know, that we got in the thing.
What, that? They don't want that.
Oh, I meant for, you know.
Oh, well, if you like.
Now, this is nothing very much. We were given it this evening in a cracker, actually. Now, we were going to keep it for our budgie, but we thought your George might like it for his collar.
So you know where he is?
Yeah, as if you couldn't guess. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Right, that's your lot, no more.
I'm terribly sorry, but I'm afraid we haven't got you anything at all. Not really much of ones for present buying.
Oh, we didn't expect it.
No.
It had a very lasting effect on me, to the point where I thought what I knew I wanted to do was, after I had seen the TV show, I wanted to see the words, because I think his language and his the precision of his characterisation is exquisite, and it just made it delighted me. What I really honed into was the comedy of it, but it wasn't comedy with a laughter track. It was proper comedy act, but there was nowhere to tell you when to laugh. There was these people not in situations, but what was coming out of it was painfully funny. But for me, I just thought, wow, amazing. So it struck me about the image of this scene carrying on where a woman is trying to kill herself. And Eva, I think the character is, and there's lots of domestic stuff going on, and in the background this woman is trying to concuss herself on the oven, hang herself, and I just thought this is a world that's opened up to me, and I just got very excited about it.
Mrs. Jackson. You shouldn't be down on the cold floor, you know, not in your condition. You should be in bed, surely. Here, now, you sit down here. There. Oh, now, don't you worry about that oven now. That oven can wait. You clean it later. No point damaging your health for an oven, is there? Mind you, I know just how you feel. You suddenly get that urge, don't you? You say to yourself, I must clean that oven if it kills me. I shan't sleep, I shan't eat until I've cleaned that oven. It haunts you. I know just that feeling.
The women, in a way, come across more sympathetically in his plays, ultimately, than anyone else, don't they?
Yeah, I have no doubt that's to do with the extraordinary bond and influence of his mother. And I guess, presumably, that's where he gets his writing genes, because she was churning out at a rate of knots, wasn't she?
She was.
On the kitchen table. And the idea that she got him one to bang along with, you know. But yeah, he has a fantastic take on the women, on the female characters that he writes.
In February 1999, Alan's mother, Lolly, the woman who'd inspired him since childhood, passed away.
Your mother lived till quite a ripe old age, and she was in her 80s.
80s, yeah.
When she died, and at her funeral at Scarborough here in the crematorium, so you brought her here, you wrote an address, and I think Heather read it, didn't she?
Yeah, I couldn't read it. I said I'd just break me up. And then she read it, and she burst into tears, bless her.
I just want to read you some of it, because it's rather extraordinary. To someone who gave me gin as a baby to help me sleep at night, who once introduced me to a strange man in a beret on top of a bus in the Strand as a previous husband, who made me a birthday cake when I was 7, short-sightedly using salt instead of sugar, who once threw my father's framed photograph at me in a fury and told me all men were bastards, who one night fell through my front door so drunk that I had to carry her to bed, who gave me far more complexes, hang-ups, phobias, prejudices, inspirations and self-insights than any writer has a right to expect from a parent. To her, many thanks, much love, and farewell.
Well, I determined to write something, and I sort of sat down and I thought, I can't write a lot of sentimental schmaltz, because that wasn't our relationship at all. I mean, it was much sparkier than that. So I thought, well, I'll just pile on the images just as they come to me. And that was my mum.
Dan, j'ai pris une décision ce soir. Je veux qu'on se sépare.
Vous savez, la vie est parsemée de ce genre d'épreuves qui vous tétanisent. Seulement, si vous ne les surmontez pas, ça lui fait trop plaisir.
Charlotte est croyante, très croyante.
Elle est amoureuse de toi?
Oh, je t'en supplie.
Et toi, elle te plaît?
Elle me quoi?
Ah, t'as rougi? Je suis sûre que
You're probably thinking, why am I watching a film by that great master of French cinema, Alan Ayckbourn, director of Last Year at Marienbad and Hiroshima Mon Amour? Well, that film, which won the Silver Lion at the Venice Film Festival 5 years ago, is the third made by René, adapted from an Ayckbourn play. It's no exaggeration to say that after his mother, René is Ayckbourn's greatest fan. I've come to Paris to interview him and his wife Sabine. René's asked to meet me at this hotel. However, he's notoriously shy and does not wish to be seen on camera.
J'ai inversé les sièges. Moi, je suis là, vous êtes là, pas comme d'habitude. Mais merci pour faire cette interview.
Bon, à l'origine, j'avais vu à Londres, dans les années 70, Absurd Person Singular. J'avais tellement ri et j'avais été tellement impressionné par l'ingéniosité. Le tout, c'était comment captiver le spectateur. 2 ou 3 ans plus tard, avec Sabine Azéma, on a tenté cette expédition, je peux dire. C'était comme un pèlerinage. On allait à Scarborough, ou à Scarborough, pardon, tous les étés, enfin, pour voir pendant une semaine tout ce qui se passait au Stephen Joseph Theatre.
René and his wife Sabine came here to Scarborough every year for 10 years before ever setting eyes on their hero, Alan Ayckbourn.
Donc nous sommes arrivés à Scarborough sans savoir vraiment ce que c'était cette ville, la région, the Yorkshire, tout ça. On connaissait rien, c'était l'inconnu absolu. On a trouvé un hôtel de Paris, un hôtel très romanesque qui nous a beaucoup plu. Et puis on a débarqué dans cette petite ville très, très anglaise. Et ensuite, on s'est promené dans la ville et on imaginait la maison d'Alan Ayckbourn partout. On disait, ça doit être là, ah c'est là, ah ça doit être là. On avait trouvé un château un peu bizarre, on disait c'est là, ah il y a de la lumière, ah il est là. Enfin, on s'est inventé toute une vie avec ça.
And then, one day at the theatre,
somebody said, hey, Alain René's in tonight.
Here in Scarborough?
Yeah, and we were doing a play called Revenger's Comedies. And I said, oh, yeah, great. And Jean-Luc Godard's in the Gents as well. And I said, well, and he said, yeah, no, I know what he looks like. And I went out, and there was this massively tall man with this white mane of, who looked so out of place. And on his arm was the most drop-dead gorgeous woman I've ever seen. I thought, that has to be Alain René.
On a pris 1 ou 2 bières ensemble et j'étais évidemment très impressionné. Et je me souviens de lui avoir dit, mais vous vous plaignez dans un interview de ne pas être Tchekhov, mais vous êtes meilleur que Tchekhov.
I thought, this is surreal. So he kept coming back, and then he asked if he could make a film of mine. And then he said, Sabine and I want to get married. We'd like to get married in Scarborough, because this is where we have
This gets more and more bizarre.
So he said, and would you and Heather, my wife, be witnesses? And I said, wow, we were absolutely honoured. So anyway, we went and witnessed their wedding, and then we took them out to dinner. And I said to Sabine, oh, this is amazing. I mean, it's so nice. This is your wedding night, and we haven't given you a proper present. I said, what would you like most? And she said, I would love to be in a play of yours in Scarborough. And suddenly, there I was, sitting on stage, and Alain in the audience with a digital camera, directing Sabine Azéma, and I felt more like Jean-Luc Godard than ever.
But it's not just Alain and Sabine. All the world, it seems, loves Alan Ayckbourn. The Poles, The Finns, the Italians, the Germans, the Japanese, the Swedes, the Czechs. Alan Ayckbourn is quite simply the most popular living playwright in the world today. Except possibly that is in Brazil, one of the world's fastest growing economies. But now, the Brazilians too are rapidly getting in on the act. Actor and director Eduardo Muniz has been here in Scarborough for months, following the rehearsals of Neighbourhood Watch.
Teenage girls who just slip out of them, walk away laughing, calm as you like, makes a mockery of justice.
Do you, when you look at those characters on the stage, do you recognize those people in Alan Ayckbourn?
Easily. Every one of them you can recognize, because it's so well written. It's very human nature. So it doesn't matter if it's in Africa or in America or here or China. I think his work is worldwide. I mean, you can do this like in every corner of the world, I think. And why not in Brazil?
Quando chamado a agir, não importava o quão perigosa ou difícil a missão.
E ótimo começo aqui, hein? Meus parabéns.
É começo.
Just a few weeks after returning from Scarborough, and Eduardo is already in rehearsal with his Portuguese translation of Neighbourhood Watch. The reading will form part of the second annual Ayckbourn Week here in São Paulo. And this year, Ayckbourn's 61st play, Snake in the Grass, has been touring venues throughout the city.
Não sei pra quê, nasceu dotada de tanta inteligência se raramente a usa.
Você deve ter razão, mas não se preocupe, eu já paguei bem caro por tudo isso, pode ter certeza.
Pois então, já devia ter aprendido.
Ah, meu Deus, mas a gente aprende. Será mesmo que a gente aprende? A gente é o que é, eu sou explosiva, você é burra. Ele dá conta de preencher a gente além das expectativas no espetáculo, mas eles realmente ele está num povo... ele está selecionado demais. Assim. Talvez ele pudesse cair mais no gosto dos grandes produtores e do grande público como consequência disso aí.
I feel very strongly about people whose work that is considered populist is then not considered serious and of worth. And you know, and I don't know, but I suspect because he has been very prolific, somehow that kind of diminishes his stock as a serious writer. Alan Ayckbourn is one of our greatest writers of all time. And in fact, I think it was in the New York Times when the Norman Conquests went over. He said there are three great writers. There are Shakespeare, Chekhov, and Ayckbourn. And that was, you know, that was the company he was keeping in this man's eyes.
At the end of this month, Neighbourhood Watch will transfer with the original Scarborough cast to a theatre off Broadway. It will be directed by the author. Prolific as ever, nothing, it seems, will stop Alan Ayckbourn, not even the stroke which he suffered in 2006.
What went through your mind when that happened about your work?
Well, it was shock, really, and I you know, I don't want to think one's immortal until something like that happens. I was lying in the hospital. I was there for 8 weeks, and I was sort of slowly, as the panic went down, I was thinking, at least I can direct. But I don't quite know whether the writing thing will come back. But I think as soon as I'm reasonably mobile, I can certainly retackle the body of work. And then, mysteriously, a little trickle of an idea, and I will start with these little flickers, and I thought, oh God, there is a tomorrow. This one's opening, and there's a new one.
coming, and that's probably what keeps me going. I mean, just the excitement of this opening, and then I need a new excitement, like a sort of mad literary mountaineer. I just need another peak to climb.
Martin, wake up! Oh no, these lights aren't working. I don't know what's happened to my lights. Martin, wake up!
This is Dougie, old man. We can talk about it.
Martin, it's me. Next door's on fire.
Next door? The house?
No. Next door's on fire. My house is on fire. I just saw it from the window. Yes, we know it is, Magda, dear.
Oh, it's well alive. Blazing away.
What are we going to do? What are we going to do?
They seem to be tapping. They must have brought the fire exits in from the
Well,
front.
it's spread to us, and it's going to spread.
Mind, if they don't keep it under control soon.
Oh, do be quiet, Magda. Martin's trying to think.
All right,
Carefully.
This is for the police. You are ordered to throw down your weapon and step outside with your hands raised.
Oh, heavens. The police. I know it is Hildrake and here.
What are you going to do?
I'm going to do as they say.
This is an official police warning. You are ordered to throw down your weapon and to step outside with your hands raised.
You think I've got a weapon?
No, you haven't got one.
I haven't got a weapon. This is not a weapon. It's Jesus.
This is your final warning. Throw your weapon on the ground now and proceed outside with your hands in the air.
I said I haven't got a weapon. I can't throw this on the ground. It'll break. See? It's Jesus. See, look. See? Can you see? It's Jesus. See? It's Jesus.
Oh! Martin!
Oh, Jesus.
Neighbourhood Watch opened to outstanding news. It has embarked on a national tour, to be followed by a New York run. No doubt it will then make its way to countless theatres across the globe. I think Alan Ayckbourn is Scarborough's gift to the world.
The hanging of the programme! The 300th new play and Alan's 75th.
On Imagine next week, the man who turned hairdressing on its head, Vidal Sassoon.